Innocent Bystander. The name of this episode's book is Innocent Bystander. It was written by Craig Rice. This edition was published by Console Books. You can see the little logo up there. This is the only Console book that I own. I'm not real familiar with the imprint. It was an imprint of the British company World Distributors, who did paperbacks and comic books during the mid to late 20th century. They'd had other imprints like Five Star and Viking. I don't know who the cover artist is, and whoever it is probably didn't read the book because there is no blonde, as you see on the cover. Not a lot of time is spent in a bar, and in fact, most of the book takes place in an amusement park, not a tavern. So I think the publishers just went with sort of a noirish looking cover and figured that readers are going to buy it no matter what. So yes, this is a carny noir, which is probably my favorite kind of noir, after swamp noir, that is. Most of the book takes place in an amusement park. The murder takes place on a Ferris wheel, and our characters spend plenty of time going through the different arcades and rides and amusements. So what's it about? Joe McGurn is a small-time hood. He's a gambler, and he's found dead on a Ferris wheel. And it's up to the policeman Art Smith to figure out who did it. And he's got one suspect in mind. And surrounding all of this are various carnies from different parts of the park. There's Amby, the portrait artist, who may or may not have been there when the murder happened. There's Tony Webb. He's kind of a small-town hood who knew McGurn beforehand and has been bouncing around from carnival to carnival. There's Ellen Haven, the girl from the dunk tank, and a few other folks, the fortune teller and the knife thrower, people like that. The climax happens at the amusement park, and there is this pretty thrilling chase through various different attractions of the park, and I could picture it in my mind's eye really clearly. It would be a great end to a film if they ever decide to film this book. So I think we'll read just page 1, and that'll give you a good taste of our book. The pier is still there, of course. So are its people. They will always be there. Oh, sure, this pier will be torn down someday, but another one will be built in its place. Yes, Ferris wheel and all. The people? Well, some of them are dead now. Murdered, in case anyone should ask you. And some of them have just moved on. Atlantic City, Coney Island, Long Beach, Riverside Park, and small-town carnivals. But there will always be others to take their places. Yes, even the places of the ones who've been murdered. You've seen the pier. You've been there. Remember? The street leading up to it is bordered with hot dog stands, popcorn parlors, all-night restaurants, delicatessens, and fortune tellers. There's a world-famous ballroom and a couple of movie theaters. There's the biggest bowling alley in the world. The street itself is littered with old newspapers, empty peanut shells, odds and ends of cigarette packages, and just plain trash. But the pier, once you've turned the corner leading into it, is a child's dream of paradise. Lights, music, rides, concessions where for a 90-cent investment you can win a 10-cent plaster doll and go home happy. Although the first page of the book is written in sort of a light tone, almost celebratory of the amusement parks, the rest of the book is pretty sober, which is unusual for Craig Rice. She was actually known for alcohol-soaked comedies that just happened to involve murder. Some people say that she sort of was the screwball comedian of murder mysteries, kind of harking to the tone of the screwball comedies that were really popular during the 30s. In fact, she had a hand in one of them. I wanted to see just how drunken her protagonists can get, and so I read a short story of hers from this issue of Manhunt. And yeah, the characters are pretty soused as they are trying to help some guy who shot a cop. There is a bit of a madcap attitude towards it. So, but this book, Innocent Bystander, has a completely different feel. In January of 1946, Craig Rice appeared on the cover of Time magazine in a painting by Boris Artzybashev. She was the first mystery writer to be celebrated by the magazine in such a way. For a while, she was one of the most popular writers in the business, but that popularity hid a number of ills. Book critic Bill Ruhlman once wrote that Craig Rice, quote, wrote the binge and lived the hangover. She was born Georgiana Ann Randolph Craig. Her parents were globetrotters who didn't want to bring a child with them on their whirlwind tours, so in 1908, after Mom gave birth to baby Georgiana in Chicago, she left the U.S., leaving her baby behind. Her father, nicknamed Bosco, didn't even return to the U.S. to be present for the birth. With her mother gone to travel with Dad overseas, little Georgiana bounced between the homes of various relatives. Then, at the age of 3, she met her parents for the first time. They stayed for a while and then left her again after 3 years together, giving Georgiana to her father's half-sister and her husband, who lived in Fort Atkinson, Wisconsin. This aunt and uncle would end up being the family the girl hadn't thus far had, and adopted her. It was her uncle, Eaton Rice, who read her Edgar Allan Poe stories and stoked her fondness for words and mystery. She'd later say that this childhood had no influence over her writing, but the number of orphans and missing parents in her characters' lives would suggest otherwise. Even in Innocent Bystander, the main cop, Art Smith, is an orphan. She got her first job writing for the radio. She wrote serials in the 1930s for WCLO, the station in nearby Janesville. Her hero for these was named Professor Silvernail, which is just about as great a name as you can give to a protagonist. At the same time, she was writing for the Milwaukee Journal and the Chicago American. And all the while, she tried her hand at writing any number of things. But it wasn't until her first published novel, 8 Faces at 3, that she met any success. It was great success, actually. The book was a hit, and more novels followed. Her nom de plume, Craig Rice, as you may have already figured out, was a combination of the last names of her unloving parents and her loving aunt and uncle, Craig and Rice. She moved to California, though she dreamed of returning to Fort Atkinson to live on a quiet farm there. In a letter to a Wisconsin friend, she called owning that imagined farm her greatest ambition. Meanwhile, in California, she became friends with a number of famous folks and wrote for and with them. She ghost wrote for her pal George Sanders, who you might know from All About Eve or The Jungle Book.
It's me, Shere Khan.
She was also friends and roommates with Gypsy Rose Lee, the burlesque stripper turned author. When Lee's The G-String Murders was turned into the movie Lady of Burlesque, Craig helped write the screenplay, but she went uncredited for the work. Craig became a very much in-demand writer. Her books, some alcohol-soaked and zany and others more sober, flew off the shelves. She wrote the screenplays to a number of movies of different genres, plus a radio and later TV show called The Amazing Mr. Malone. But despite the fame and fortune, Rice had a difficult life. She was married multiple times. Some sources say she had 4 husbands. Others say she had as many as 7. In some interviews, she even claimed she couldn't remember some of her former husbands' names. For one of the marriages, she reportedly used one of her own novels instead of a Bible during the ceremony. Another wedding featured a cake decorated with candy skulls instead of roses of frosting. The most famous of her husbands was beat poet Lawrence Lipton, the father of TV host James Lipton. James was born before their marriage, so for a while Craig Rice was his stepmother. She and Lawrence had 3 children together, Nancy, Iris, and David. It was not, alas, a sunshine and rainbows marriage. Lipton hated her books. He was jealous of her success. They physically fought. When they divorced, Lipton claimed that he was the author of her books and demanded royalties. Her novel Home Sweet Homicide is often cited as being inspired by her and her kids. It features a single crime-reporting mother who spends her days busy typing away while her 3 children solve a murder outside. Maybe that was more fantasy than reality, because like her own parents, Rice sent her kids to be raised by other relatives. Not being present was a recurring theme in Rice's life. At one point in time, she sued a grocer for wrongful imprisonment. The grocer had claimed she had shoplifted a bar of soap. The case was thrown out because she never appeared in court. She disappeared for several months, even eluding her lawyer. I won't dwell too much on the later tragedies of her life. It makes for juicy gossip, but there's something morbid about trafficking in someone's tragedies. The last half of her career became a sad, dysfunctional spiral that she eventually succumbed to. Money problems arose again and again. She was hospitalized for her alcoholism more than once, attempted suicide more than once. She went deaf in one ear and blind in one eye. Glaucoma started taking the other eye. She took on too much work and had to employ ghostwriters. Her biographer, Jeffrey Marks, believes she suffered from bipolar disorder. Eventually, it all caught up with her, and she passed away at the age of 49 by an overdose of alcohol and barbiturates. It's sometimes said that the funniest people on the outside are actually the darkest people on the inside. That humor is a way to mask or deal with the struggles that they have. And maybe that's true of Craig Rice. Maybe she wrote these funny stories to combat the troubles and struggles that she was having internally. But it's easy to be an armchair psychologist, especially all these decades later. Maybe that wasn't why she wrote funny things. Maybe she just liked making people laugh. There certainly is a lot of pleasure in doing that. If you're a Craig Rice fan, make a comment below. Maybe make a recommendation. Which book do you think best exemplifies her sense of humor? Or maybe which one has the best mystery? We'd love to hear from you. Well, see you next time.